Good afternoon, everyone. We're about to get started. Thank you for joining today's live webinar, Modern Customer Journey Mapping for Marketers. My name is Erin Presso. I'm VP of Marketing at Silvertech. Silvertech is a national digital experience agency. I'm joined today with Riley Newman, who is one of Silvertech's digital strategy experts. Welcome, Riley. I'm excited to get started and talk about customer journey mapping.
Awesome, let's do it.
Awesome. So to get started, Riley, can you start things off by just talking a little bit about what customer journey maps are and why they're so important?
Absolutely. And Erin, I think this is a really great topic to cover, especially before we actually get into the process of customer journey mapping. So in short, a customer journey map is that representation of a path a user may take to reach their goal when interacting with your website. Customer journey maps are going to provide you that insight into what is and isn't working for users, giving you that in-depth understanding of exactly what your users need. They also help you to look at how your customers actually experience your website rather than how you think they do. And by better understanding your users, you can better deliver on expectations to drive a more meaningful and successful outcome. Through a customer journey map, we're going to identify some goals, steps, actions, and emotions that users are bringing to their experience when interacting with your website. This is really going to help you understand user behaviors to really target your experience. One thing I do want to point out, Erin, is that goals are going to vary based on the personas and identified business goals internally. For example, these could include anything from driving more users to open an account or increasing engagement for specific content. And another thing to consider is that customer journey mapping is going to follow the user through their journey in its entirety. So we're talking from the initial touch point through to the conversion and implementation. And this is where we really want to think about that sales funnel and how we can guide the user through their digital experience. Now, not every customer journey map is going to be the same, and we'll show you a couple of examples later on, but the most beneficial approach to creating a well-rounded customer journey is to walk a digital mile in your customer's shoes. So thinking about things like where would I start, how am I feeling, and even what would I need to be successful at every stage of my interaction. And Erin, can you talk a little bit about on how to get started with a customer journey mapping process?
Thank you, Riley. That's a great overview. Yes, for those who may not be familiar with developing customer journey maps, we wanted to do a quick overview of how to get started, because obviously every customer that you have is unique and they could be interacting with you in a multiple, unlimited really amount of ways through multiple channels, multiple touch points, interactions, devices. So how do you even know where to start? For most clients, we help them craft between 2 and 6 customer journey maps initially. And they vary depending on customer segment and situation. We typically recommend looking at 2 key considerations when determining what customer journey maps will be most useful. The first is customer segment. So how many groups of customers do you have that have similar needs and goals? That's just one way to kind of segment customers together. Those who have similar goals, those who behave the same, those who have similar attributes. And you start to be able to develop categories of customers. Many times, organizations may also have personas developed that kind of meet this purpose. They've already categorized those customer groups together or those customer segments that they want to track. If you don't have personas, we definitely recommend starting those and then kind of coming back to develop the customer journey maybe as a second phase. So how do you know kind of which customer journeys to map out? We work with clients to ultimately understand how they're going to be using those customer journeys and how they're going to be using them to kind of improve their overall efforts. And we work backwards from there. So for example, here are some ways that we figure out which journeys we want to map. So customer segment. So existing customers within a certain demographic or persona, you can develop a customer journey map for that particular group of people. Or it could be that they're a particular group of people enrolled in a particular program, or they live in a particular geographic area, or they're customers who have hit some sort of milestone, whether it's, they've spent over a certain amount or they've completed some sort of onboarding. And you can obviously combine the segments. You can combine kind of some demographics with some other attributes. So it could be, personas of people who are under, a certain age group who have also enrolled in a particular program. So really you have to take a look at, how would this help my business in the end? How would knowing how these people behave or act or what their journey is help my business and make an impact in the end? So customer segment, identifying customer segments that are impactful to your business are one of the key ways. Another way is behavior groupings. So these could be, instead of the category kind of falling to who they are or what some of their key attributes are, it could be, what they've done, what they've accomplished. So it could be, your VIP shoppers who have hit some sort of spending milestone. It could be, people who abandoned shopping carts. It could be customers who gave you high or low ratings, and you kind of group those groups together. And again, when you look at, how is this going to impact my business? And those groups of people will naturally fall out, whether your business is impacted by frequent shoppers or VIP shoppers. And then the other one are the high value interactions. So of course, you want to also look at those again that are going to be most impactful, such as your key accounts or your VIPs or the high spenders. Those who have high revenue potential for your business. You want to, those might be a segment that you want to map out first before you kind of go into subsets of users. And then, of course, when you look at those that impact your business, you have users who can impact your business from a positive standpoint, and you also have those users who can help you understand their journey from more of the negative standpoint, where they may have been a group of users that are frustrated. So, maybe your customer service reps or your frontline, those who are on the front line, have identified that this group of customers is struggling. They can't find what they need online. They are having a hard time completing a purchase. No matter what it is, those also are great people to map out because you can learn a ton from them.
Awesome.
So
Thank you so
you're
much.
probably wondering now that you know what user groups that you potentially could map. I guess, Riley, how do you know what data you need to collect in order to put some of these journey maps together?
Absolutely. Thanks, Erin. That was a lot of great information. And where to start is there's two really different types of data. There's the existing and the new data. And both are equally important to help provide that more holistic view of a user's behavior, where existing data is going to reference mostly historical information. So when we think about things like Google Analytics, any analytics tool really, Hotjar or heat mapping tools, thinking about tools that provide insight to where users are navigating, such as transactional data, secondary market research like industry magazines or industry data, and other first-party customer data. So, for example, if you leverage a CMS that has insights or maybe social media data, things like that. And that's going to be a really great starting point when you look at customer journey mapping. But that being said, we really want to think about also that new data, and that's going to help fill in some of the gaps. So for example, if you're looking at Google Analytics and you're looking at page views, if you notice that a certain page has low traffic and that's surprising to you, you can kind of piece together what you can based on those analytics tools. But at the end of the day, understanding the why is going to come from that new data. So thinking about things like leveraging user testing, surveys, strategic interviews, and that's where we really can start to connect the dots with that existing data and understand the why and why we are seeing certain behavior throughout those customer journeys. Awesome. I think we can go to the next slide, which I want to talk about some of those critical components to consider when creating a customer journey. So there's going to be different types of customer journeys. We're going to talk through a couple examples and how they vary, but the biggest thing to take away is some of those critical or key components that are essential to all customer journey mapping. And, there's different approaches, but these are essential to a well-rounded approach. So thinking about the interaction, and this is how users are interacting with your website. Are they finding you through a targeted Facebook ad? Are they using Google search? And what are they clicking once they get to your site? How are they finding the information they need? And this is going to help us understand those areas of opportunities as it relates to SEO, marketing efforts, and overall content strategy for your website. Now, Straying from that a little bit, as we get into the touch point, this is really important, especially now more than ever with some of Google's new features. So thinking about what devices are users coming from to access your website. This is critical for optimization. For example, if most users are coming to your website from mobile optimization is going to be essential, especially when we think about navigation and how content collapses on mobile. Another thing that I want to point out is as of a few years ago, Google actually rolled out mobile first indexing. So they're going to index your mobile site over your desktop first. So this is something to think about when we really see a lot of that mobile interaction. Coming from that, emotional insights. So this is where we really get the opportunity to meet users where they're at. If they're feeling uncertain or frustrated in their journey, how do we alleviate some of that stress to create a more positive UX for the user? So thinking about kind of those opportunities, providing the content that's relevant to the user journey, and really maximizing the user experience. And this transitions nicely as well into some of that supporting content. So one of the most important aspects, personally, I feel, and I think is kind of a standard overall, is making sure we serve the right content to the right user at the right time. So as we start to take more of a granular look into some of the user interactions on your website, it's really critical to think about the types of information or content they need to be successful. So for example, if you have a customer and they're looking to apply for a mortgage, we want to make sure that the information they need is easily accessible and we hit them with the CTA or call to action to apply at the right time. So thoughtfully placing those triggers and touch points. Finally, we want to think about opportunities and think about these as more nice to haves. So taking your content strategy or content to the next level, almost one step further than that supporting content. And these are things that would make the customer's journey that much more intuitive and successful, but may not be a day one priority. So for example, maybe a user is looking for, quick access information constantly on your website. A chatbot functionality may be a nice to have and could be really useful in this case, but it's not going to be essential to the user's journey at that point. So it may not be a priority. So that's where we would leverage supporting content, but opportunities are nice to have that take your content strategy one step further. And now I want to talk through the first example of our persona and user journey we want to share today, our customer mapping experience. And there's a couple of key components that I want to touch on. And this is an example of the persona. We'll get into customer journey map in a minute. But to provide an overview, it looks like a lot of information, but this is a banking persona looking to join a new bank that's going to offer financial guidance post-retirement. So when we think about a couple things that go into identifying our target segment, we really want to think about their level of motivation, digital competency, and financial literacy. So for example, if you look at those charts in the bottom left corner, you're going to see that lifestyle Lisa, that this is our great persona for today. She is not as financial literacy, her comfort level is not as high. And that's strictly because maybe she doesn't have as much experience with banking institutions. She is looking for a new bank, so she's going to need more of that hand holding. And then when we think about digital competency as well, it's how comfortable or tech savvy is our demographic. Is it, a younger demographic that's very tech savvy, always on mobile, or is it maybe that older age segment that isn't as familiar with tech? And we need to be mindful of that as we create the content strategy. And then finally, thinking about level of motivation. So how motivated is Lisa to find a new bank and seek that financial guidance? If a user is extremely motivated, they just want what they want when they want it. Versus, if we have someone that's maybe not as motivated, how do we really finesse the journey to make them more motivated? How do we present them with that content they need to be successful, to reach their goals? And these are things we want to consider when looking at that starting point for the persona and carrying into that customer map. So let's talk also a little bit about software and applications. These are essential to understanding what our persona or target demographic is interacting with on a daily basis. For example, in this case, you see Lifestyle Lisa is interacting with Alexa day to day. And what that means is she's probably using voice search a lot, more than not. And that means she may be saying things like, "Hey Alexa, banks near me." And if that's the case, we want to make sure that we're optimizing our content for that voice search format. So long tail keywords, FAQ structure, and everything in between. And this is where understanding those software and applications is really beneficial to drive our strategy overall. Finally, as we look to things or key components that go into a customer journey map, seeking those problems and challenges and needs and goals are highly beneficial. So those problems and challenges are going to be things like hurdles, potential roadblocks, and these are things we want to consider so we can meet Lisa where she's at in her journey and make sure we're presenting the right content at the right time. And from there, looking at her needs and goals on the website. So what does she need to be successful? What is she looking for? Does she prioritize community involvement? Is she looking for support? Does she need that extra handholding? And these are all things that we want to consider so we can help Lisa be as successful as possible in her website experience. All right, and let's take a look at Lisa's journey on the website. So you can see here, if you look at the left-hand column, you can see some of those key components that we touched on earlier, that interaction, that touch point, some of those emotional insights, supporting content, and opportunities. And you'll notice that at each stage in Lisa's journey, we define what those look like. And that's because those can change. As Lisa has different interactions on the website and her needs may change as well through her journey, we want to make sure we're being mindful of all of these core components throughout. Another thing I want to touch on is you'll see at the top there, we have everything from awareness all the way to interaction and implementation. And essentially what this is it really follows the sales cycle. So thinking about how do we really guide Lisa in her journey and get her to that endpoint where she's successfully completed her goal and can feel at ease from an emotional standpoint. So a couple things here I want to touch on are those interactions. And we touched on this earlier, but this is essentially how she's finding the site, how she moves through the site, and then finally how she, converts or reaches her goal. You can see here, for example, Lisa's coming through Google. She Googles local banks near me. With that in mind, we want to be mindful of supportive content, such as organizational schema, location schema. We want to make sure that meta descriptions are optimized and really drive home that SEO effort because she is coming from Google. Now, if she was coming from, a Facebook ad, maybe we look at OG image or field optimization and a bunch of other characteristics that are really dependent on where she's coming from. So this is where we can start to really curate that experience and look at what content is going to be effective for Lisa specifically. Another thing to touch on is these touch points. So thinking about she's coming from desktop, she's part of that demographic that is not as tech savvy. So we want to be mindful of that. We also want to be mindful that, she's going to go in branch at some point. You can see under that interaction and implementation piece. So when she comes back to the website, how does her interactions change? How does her journey change? And what needs to be in place so that she's just as successful when she returns to the site? And maybe this is where some of those opportunities come into play. And we look at things like personalization, imagery specific to Lisa's demographic. And this is where, those emotional and supportive insights really come in handy as we start to really craft and define Lisa's journey at a more granular level. Now, this format is through PowerPoint, and there are many different formats we can leverage to create these customer journey maps. And although they may look different or maybe slightly different in their approach, the ultimate end goal and driving factors are going to be consistent. So Erin, I'd love if you could show us another example of how a user journey map was implemented and talk us through that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Riley. That example was amazing and very detailed. So yes, as Riley had mentioned, there's many, many different ways and formats that you can do user journeys in. She has shown you kind of her format, and this is another one that we just wanted to point out. There's two things really that I want to point out about this example. This was for a client, Nova Scotia Power. This is an example of a persona and user journey map we had done for them, and they've given us permission to share. So there's two things that are important about this user journey map. One, we used a program called Smaply, which is a little different than the tool Riley was describing that she used in her customer journey map. Smaply is just a tool. You subscribe to this tool and it allows you to create user journey maps by kind of plugging in all the information, and then the tool formats it really nicely for you. Because a lot of times these user journey maps that you create are something that can actually be, in a lot of our clients, they print them out poster size and hang them on the wall so that employees can really see them and understand them as they use them, as they leverage them in all of their different marketing activities. So this particular, so Smaply prints out kind of a tabloid size user journey map. I'm going to kind of, I showed you, I took a couple screenshots and snippets from it so you can see it. If you are doing complex or really detailed user journey maps, though, I do recommend Smaply to take a look at that tool anyway to see if it works for you. This particular example, and then the second thing, sorry, I wanted to touch base about on user journey maps was the that Riley had mentioned also was the importance of focusing on their emotional state. Focusing on the end user or your personas or your customer segments emotional state is very important as well, because as you know, just as a customer's life changes from day to day, their journey is going to change from day to day. And when you think about helping a utility, as we have here for Nova Scotia Power, somebody who is going through on a blue sky day, kind of interacting with the utility, paying their bill, or looking online to look up an energy program, their experience and their state of mind is going to be much, much different than when there's a power outage and someone is scrambling because they have no heat in their home and they're trying to figure out when the power is going to come back on. The anxiety level is much higher, and because of that their experience is going to be much, much different. And so with a lot of our utility clients, we also can help map out both like blue sky experiences versus outage or key event experiences. So that's something that's super important as well. And here, this is kind of an example of this. This isn't an outage example, but this is an example of, so in this particular case, this is College Colleen. She's a persona that we had created for college students in the area of this particular utility. She has to connect power to her apartment, and she has roommates. She has a landlord, and she's starting school in a matter of days. So she's kind of worried. She's really flustered, and this is the first time that she's trying to get power to her apartment on her own. She's navigating this whole process by herself without her parents. So we kind of, this particular user journey we saw through that lens. So we were able to provide some great ways for Nova Scotia Power to be able to improve that experience. They ranged from the terminology we used to having better instructions on certain pages, video tutorials that maybe connected with her or resonated with her better, and things like that. And just to show you a few screens and kind of how this looks a little bit different. Again, most of the same core elements as the one that Riley had showed you. Has the sales, kind of the sales cycle or the steps she would take along the top, the stages of her experience. In this particular case, we were very interested in her step-by-step journey through the website. So how did she become aware that she could use the Nova Scotia Power website to connect her power? Once she got there, what was she looking at in terms of pages? What were the different steps she took? And so as you can see here, we kind of have her description of how she's feeling and what she needs to do. And then we kind of mapped that through, with the devices, as you saw, and then kind of her pain points for each step. So where her emotional journey was with the little emojis, and then, steps such as, I don't see a clear option on this page that says move power. So that's just an example. So those digital experience pain points, we also can storyboard out all of her screenshots. So step by step, we're looking at this through her lens. We're actually seeing the pages that she's seeing as we're putting the map together. Again, very, very helpful when you're trying to develop supporting content, as Riley was talking about supporting content and identifying those ideal opportunities at the end. So that's just a couple examples of the formats that you can use for creating customer journey maps. But Riley, kind of now that you know what they are, maybe you could talk a little bit about how to take all this great information and these great insights that you derive from customer user journey maps, and how do you actually apply them to all of your other marketing activities? Because as we know, user journey maps can be useful for so much more than your website.
Absolutely. I think that's a really, really great point, Erin. And I think it's so important when we think about the customer journey, not only in the website, but how that translates to understanding the customer segment for larger marketing initiatives as well. So thinking about the customer journey map as a whole, customer journey maps are going to give you that more granular insight into how your customers interact with your website or marketing initiatives to identify any gaps and create that streamlined UX. So, we touched on this a lot, but I think it's really important to really drive that concept home and really, emphasize the importance of these customer journey maps. They allow us to address areas of frustration, but also areas of opportunity. And ultimately, this is going to help us enhance content to drive that seamless UX and create that customer loyalty to promote long-term engagement. So thinking about once we have our customer journey maps, that's when we can evaluate our current content, not only on our website, but also our marketing efforts as well as our navigation structure to make sure it really meets the needs of our customers and is helpful to them in reaching their goals. And from there, we're able to more strategically place CTAs, define our ad strategy, review internal linking strategies, and incorporate more of those assistive components to really drive a more comprehensive experience across the board. And this is where we create, adjust, and enhance those touch points to make sure our approach is effective in driving conversions. So as an end result, you're going to get that added relationship value for customers, that personalization, and messaging that's going to really resonate with your target audience, taking out that guesswork. And aside from the direct impact of the customer journey map as well, it's going to provide your company and stakeholders with a more holistic view of your target customer segments. So I know, Erin, you mentioned literally sometimes they print these out and post them, in their conference rooms, in their offices. And that is really going to help align internal teams and make sure that, your strategy is well-rounded as it pertains to web and marketing efforts. And this is going to really promote that long-term business success as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Riley. Thank you for walking us through your expertise kind of in developing journey maps and the examples you went through. I think those will really help those who are just starting out on their journey, on their day-to-day journey. See what we did there? Yeah. Okay, so we did get a couple questions though submitted. So I just wanted to kind of see if you could help walk us through those.
Sure.
So one person had submitted, they said, we have a lot of different customers. How many customer journey maps do I need? And do I need to journey map for every persona?
That's a great question. And it's actually one that we get a lot at Silvertech. I get it a lot from clients because at the end of the day, most clients come to us and they want to account for every single persona. They want to account for 100% of their customer base. And being realistic, that's just not possible. There's always going to be that one outlier. So what we typically recommend as an approach is let's capture that 80%. Let's capture the majority of your customer segments. And going back to what you had said, Erin, about kind of those 2 to 6 personas, that's where we tend to find that sweet spot. And that is typically the count that's going to make up the majority of your customer base and the majority of how users are interacting with your site to build out those customer journey maps. And this is also where we typically recommend a crawl, walk, run approach. So you can always start with, 1 to 2 personas, and then from there start to evaluate and define how those map to your customer base and where maybe some of those gaps are. But typically, and to kind of summarize, I would say we try and account for 80% or the majority of your customer segments. And to do that, we typically can do that in the 2 to 6 personas and customer journey maps.
Yeah, I love that. And just to add to that, I would also say, like, to look, if you're struggling with that and you're not sure how to narrow it down to 2 or 6, the other thing that I would say is to look at those that make the most impact to your business.
Yes.
For example, targeting, younger generations or younger demographics, or if you're trying to entice those types of users to utilize a specific tool on your website or to enroll in a particular program, then obviously that would make a big impact to your business to make sure that one of the younger demographic personas was included.
Right. Absolutely.
Awesome.
I think that's a really great point, Erin. So I appreciate the additional insight.
Awesome. And then the other question we got was around, somebody was looking to do a web transformation in the near future and they want to better understand their audience, which is great for customer journey mapping. And they asked, should customer journey maps be used for evaluating current state or ideal state experiences? Interesting.
Yeah, so this is going to depend. I think this is a really great question. Again, you're not alone. It's definitely one that we get a lot from our clients. And To summarize, it's really going to depend on your internal goals. So if you're looking to address some of those immediate pain points, I would definitely recommend focusing on the current state. But that being said, if you are planning a web transformation, which is great, and thinking about more of a future-driven customer experience strategy, that's where there's an opportunity. And I may suggest taking more of that future state approach. So what does that ideal experience look like? And what would your ideal customer journey map include if you're thinking about where you want to be and where maybe over where you are today. So thinking about that approach is definitely important, and you can really start to identify some of those gaps. Either approach is going to help you identify opportunities, which is great, but ideal state is going to focus a little bit more on that improvement and innovation side rather than, what you have today in minor, some of those minor tweaks. So I definitely think if you're planning a web transformation, it's a great time to start incorporating some of those ideal state journey maps. I think it can really help you understand where your customers are, but also where they're going and where you'd like to be. Understanding kind of that ideal state customer journey to help meet them where they are. So in the meantime, if you aren't quite at the point of the web build or web transformation, current state customer journeys can be definitely beneficial. And then as you start to think about that bigger transformation or lift for your website, that's where you can start to maybe evaluate and consider some of those future state personas and customer journey maps. So it's kind of a little bit of both, but I think this is a great question. And it really just depends on what you're looking to do and kind of upcoming initiatives as a business.
Yes, excellent. Okay. Well, thank you, Riley. It looks like that's all we have time for. And I know we did get a couple other questions that we can continue to kind of work through and answer through email.
Sure.
We certainly hope this webinar has been helpful for you. And if you'd like any other additional information or if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to Riley or myself at Silvertech. We'd be happy to help. So thank you, Riley. Thanks so much for your help in this. And Riley and I both wish everybody well in their marketing endeavors. So thanks so much. And until next time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.